Hey, what's up everyone? I wanted to walk you through this big Enshrouded patch. First off, there's some sweet vanity and seasonal flair. A Blood Rose armor vanity set shows up for players who push into the late game and hunt a particular NPC for it. So if you're into showing off a new look while carving through the shroud, that's your new flex. There's also a Valentine-themed cushion you can craft, which is one of those little touches that makes bases feel more personal. It's tiny, but seeing new decorative items over time adds a lot to the home base vibe. Now onto the stuff that affects how the game actually runs. If you've ever had the world go black when using DLSS with certain NVIDIA drivers or graphics settings, that maddening black screen bug has been addressed, so players using upscale tech should have a much more stable experience and fewer sudden crashes when toggling settings. Speaking of crashes and stability, the developers dug into a handful of causes tied to large player-built bases, building placement in multiplayer, and some water-related placement edge cases. So folks who host servers or love big community builds will likely feel this patch in the reduction of random disconnects and build placement failures. There's also a new one-session GPU tracing pop-up that shows up if the game detects repeated GPU crashes, which is a smart move. It's subtle, it's meant to gather diagnostic info for devs, and it doesn't force you into anything, but it should lead to faster fixes for stubborn graphics crashes down the line. Gameplay quirks got attention too. Pathfinding for enemies and animals has been improved, so creatures move more sensibly in tight spaces and won't get stuck on simple geometry as often, which feels better during crowded fights and when you're corralling animals for a pen. Some of the shroud and visual oddities are fixed as well. Invisible shroud patches that would trick players, water rendering issues under bridges and around shorelines, and a handful of gear icon and visual polish fixes mean the world looks and reads cleaner when you're scanning the map for loot or trying to discern enemy types at a glance. Combat spells were tweaked so they behave more reliably. Shroud Meteor now targets the right things instead of being inconsistent. And a couple of bolt-type spells were reworked so fire and ice projectiles actually hit what you aim at more often, which is huge for builds that rely on precise spell casting. The Necromancer skill had an odd bug where kills caused by other players or traps could incorrectly spawn skull companions, and that has been resolved, so your minion count will be less surprisingly chaotic and more in line with your intended playstyle. On the enemy side, there's a tweak that brings back the ability for foes to block player attacks in certain situations. And Depth Dweller projectiles now have a brief glow to telegraph parry timing. That little visual cue makes fights feel fairer and gives you the reaction window you deserve, instead of taking hits out of nowhere. Survivors and NPC behavior saw a quality of life fix too. You shouldn't find survivors sleeping on the ground when beds are available anymore, and adding a little bit of my taste, which is one of those immersion breakers that becomes charmingly fixed here. The update touched a lot of smaller but satisfying systems. Mining sieves and underwater grappling have improved interactions. The watering can UI was smoothed. Mannequins now manage equipment slots better for showing off gear. Fish animations and behavior were polished so bodies of water feel more alive, and audio tweaks like underwater reverb and bat volume balancing add to the atmosphere in subtle ways. There are also a bunch of UI and icon fixes, more consistency in how items display in inventories, and some collector-friendly improvements in how decorations and vanity pieces behave when placed. Altogether, this patch is one of those mixes that blends cosmetics, meaningful bug fixes, and back-end diagnostics that should reduce random frustration for regular players, while giving completionists and base builders some nice little wins. If you're returning after a break or gearing up for a co-op session, expect fewer crashes, crisper visuals, and a handful of combat behaviors that feel like they were tuned with real play in mind. And for those who love collecting vanity items, the new armor and the themed cushion are the kind of tiny rewards that make a long session of adventuring worth it. Have fun out there and enjoy checking the changes in your own save.